Hey guys, James Thompson here, Blackwater Paddle Club. Today we're going to talk about and show you how to install a rudder kit on a Jackson Cuda kayak. This installation will work on a 14-foot or 12-foot Cuda. Granted, these are the old model Cudas, not the new ones. I think you'll find these kayaks to be one of the best, if not the best in the industry, specifically for what we do in regards to expedition kayaking. You can get a week's worth of gear inside or on these kayaks. Well, that being said, it probably takes an hour, and I would rate this maybe 2, 3 out of 5 on difficulty. Keep in mind, you are modifying your kayak. You are drilling holes in your kayak. You will have open flame near your kayak as you use these heat shrinks. All in all, take necessary precautions. You do not want to overspin a rivet and have it overheat and melt through your kayak. I've seen it done. It's very unsightly. So take the time, do it right, do it light, and I think you'll be pleased with your results. I appreciate you tuning in. Now let's get started. Alright, so let's discuss some of the tools we're going to be using. We're going to need some tape. It doesn't matter what kind of tape you use. I just grabbed some packing tape. You're going to need a Phillips head screwdriver. You're going to need some pliers. I just grabbed some dikes. You're going to need a 3/8 inch wrench. You're going to need a permanent marker, a lighter, 3 drill bits. You're going to need a 9/64 inch drill bit. This is the smallest one, and you're going to use this to install the white opaque steering cable tubing into some of the locations which we're going to discuss later. You're also going to need a 3/16 inch drill bit, and this will be used to install the rivets into the hull. 7/32 inch drill bit, and that's going to be used to install the larger control cord tubing that is black in color. We're also going to use some silicone on the center of each rivet to keep it waterproof. Then we're going to use some Loctite. We're going to have a box cutter to cut the tubing. We're going to need a crimping tool to crimp ends on the cable on the stern. And we're going to need a rivet tool. To finish it off, we're going to need a drill with a number 3 and a number 2 Phillips bit. With all of the tools out of the way, the first thing I recommend we do is take off and remove the center hatch cover. When you open it up, it'll come off nicely, but sometimes it can be in the way, especially when you're working on these foot rails and foot rail sliders. So let's go ahead and do that now. I'm going to reinstall the cap nut for safekeeping. Let's set this out of the way. Okay, I'm going to start off this installation by removing the foot rails on either side of the kayak. We have to replace these with the Jackson supplied foot rail sliders. We're going to also reuse these foot rails, so take special note to not damage them. To do that, I'm going to use a Phillips head and a 3/8 inch wrench. It's a little difficult to get in here, but once you're in here, you can easily start unscrewing this foot rail. With both nuts taken off the back of the bolts, all you have to do is pull out the foot rail. You'll probably hear a washer fall into the hole. Sometimes a little prying is necessary. There we go. And that's what that looks like. You're going to remove this pair of bolt, washer, and nut combo from your original foot rail installation kit. You want to save these because we're going to use them later to reinforce the foot rail sliders, and I'll talk about that shortly. And now to the other side. Now that I've got both foot rails off of the original installation, we're going to go ahead and drill 2 holes right here inside the hole, and this is using the 9/64 inch drill bit, and this will be used to insert the white opaque steering cable tubing. I didn't go ahead and install the foot rail sliders because it gives you a little more room to access these areas with your drill. Make sure you center the hole on this little segment here. Pretty easy to do. Real quick, one point of concern that I ran into here. You'll see some videos talk about centering your actual foot rail into the foot slider and drilling holes through there to figure out how to get this thing indexed onto your kayak. The problem there is this kit has a 17 inch long foot slider, and it looked a little long and it didn't look to line up properly. I laid this up against one of my other 14-foot Jackson Cudas, and those are 16 inches long, so this is an extra inch long. It won't go forward because of this rail here, and it's too far back by an inch. and that's going to have a problem with your control cable tubing. I guess we should add tape measure and chop saw to the tool list. Okay, now that I have the footrail centered on the footrail slider, I'm going to take a 3/16 inch drill bit and drill through each one of these holes, which will correspond with the holes onto the kayak already drilled. And here's two. Remember we talked earlier about saving the original hardware? Well, what we want to do here is we're actually going to use these to put a third bolt into this footrail slider. So I put the mounting bolts through the footrail slider and just laid them into the hole. I didn't tighten them up yet. I just used that to index where I'm going to put this other bolt right in the center. And putting on these footrail sliders to the hole, one thing that Jackson Kayak didn't include in the kit that I am going to use are 4 additional washers. These are 10 by 24 millimeter 3/4 inch washers. These are going to go on the back side of each one of the 4 outside bolts. Otherwise it's just going to be a lock nut holding that into the hole. Sometimes you lean pretty heavily on these pedals. You certainly don't want one of these popping off. And now we just tighten all 3 screws on each side of the foot pedal sliders. Now that we're on the back side of the kayak, we're going to go ahead and drill the 2 holes for the steering cable tubing. Again, this is going to be 9/64 inch drill bit. Do not go to the larger drill bits here. You'll have ruined your hole. Now we're going to move on and drill the 7/32 inch hole using the 7/32 inch drill bit, and we're going to put that right on that dot, which is a recess here, and that's going to be used for the black tubing, of course, which is your rudder control cord cable. I want to do it at a slight angle. We have one more hole to drill with a 7/32 inch drill bit, and that's going to be on the starboard side of the boat. We'll get to that in a moment. Let's go ahead and remove these nylon screws. We won't be using these again. You want to cut the end of this tubing on an angle so it goes through the holes much easier. You want to do that on both ends. Then you're going to reach in and grab it and just pull it through. When you get to the end of the tubing pull, you want to leave about an inch out, and ultimately we're going to flare these in so in case something were to happen, they won't pull back through these holes. With the rudder cable tubing now put inside the kayak, I need to get this end all the way to the foot pedals. So I'm going to take a rod, which I've already put inside the kayak. Mind you, it's on the outside of the scupper plug holes inside the kayak, and I'm just going to tape it onto this pole and slide it forward on the outside of the scupper holes. In the end, you're going to do the same thing on both sides of the kayak for the white tubing. Little gold nugget for you. What you want to do here at the end of your cable tubing is you want to light and burn the very end of it and cause that tubing to mushroom, which will keep it from pushing out or pulling in to the hole. See that right there? And then all we got to do is wait for it to cool, and then we'll essentially just pull it right back up to the edge of the hole here, and we're golden, just like that. Do that on both sides. Now that we've got the tubing all the way to the sitting area of the kayak, we're going to have to reach in and thread that tubing through this hole that we previously drilled. And this is ultimately going to allow the rudder cable control cable to access the footrail. And we'll do that now. And we're just going to slide this thing into the hole. Once it's through, just pull it. Now that you've got the white tubing all the way through the kayak on this side, cut it flush with the back of the footrail and discard that piece. In order to mount this to your kayak, you're going to put a heat shrink over the end of the tubing, flush to the end, and apply heat. From here, you're going to line up the nylon loop. You're going to put a 10 by 24 by 3/4 inch bolt, and you're going to take 2 of the supplied black nylon washers and put those onto the bolt. You're going to line this up onto the tubing. With the hole drilled, all you're going to do is thread on the loop onto the tubing and push the bolt all the way through the hole and affix it to the back with one of the supplied lock nuts using a Phillips head screwdriver and a 3/8 inch wrench. In order to install the black tubing, which will be for your rudder control rope, we're going to drill a 7/32 hole right here. We'll dress that up a little bit, make it nice and pretty. Alright, so we're going to cut this black tubing at an angle on one end, just like that. And that'll give you the opportunity to slide through the hole much easier. We have to make 2 insertions with this one end, so we're going to start here. The reason we start here and not at the stern is because you can't reach this area of the kayak. The stern hatch and the mid hatch don't allow you to reach your arms here. Little soapy water never hurt. It's a pretty tight fit, so I encourage you to add some more soapy water onto this thing so that it slides very effortlessly. You're going to reach in once you get enough of the tubing through and pull that tubing through. Leave about 2–2.5 inches of excess. Don't cut it off flush with the kayak, because now we have to install another one of those black nylon loops, and that's going to go around the tubing. And there's also a small recess right here behind the large recess for your clamp cleat, and this is where you're going to install this black nylon loop. And this time we're going to apply a rivet. All your rivets on these kayaks use 3/16 of an inch drill bit. With the hole drilled, it would be a good time to go ahead and put some silicone on this hole. You can never have too much of this stuff, I promise you. Just dab some over the hole. Make sure you get good purchase on the outside of the hole, as well as the inside. And install your rivet. Now with the loop done, let's go ahead and cut a small piece of this off. Now that we have it trimmed to length, I want to heat up the end of a Phillips head screwdriver. I want to get it pretty hot. Ultimately, I'm going to stick this down the end of this tubing in an effort to flare out the mouth. That'll create less resistance. Now I'm going to install the clam cleat here on the side of the boat. Clam cleat is designed to bite the rudder control cord. And you're going to drill 2 holes in the side of your hull with a 3/16 drill bit. One here and one here. Dress those up, we'll be ready to go. Don't forget your silicone. One thing to notice is, again, you want the opening facing forward. Don't install it backwards. At this point, we have all 3 rivets installed. My recommendation is to go over the end holes with more silicone. Once it's on, just press it in with your thumb. Make it look a little neater. Alright, let's see if we can get this black tubing through the stern here. I'm going to reach in through the back cargo hatch and just push right on through. You want it tight. There we go. And just keep pulling. From here, let's just cut flush with the back of the boat. Now that we have the steering cable installed, we're going to take a 10 by 24 by 1 inch bolt, go through the eyelet of the cable. We're going to insert that in the back of the footrail. There's a little plastic nub right here. That's the front. From there, we're going to install the lock nut. To install the footrail onto the footrail slider, all you have to do is take out the slack on your steel cable, go to the far end back here. Do not, I repeat, do not crimp this cable. Just like that. If you look inside your stern hatch, you're going to see that the rudder control cable and the tubing are inside this hole. What we want to do is pull them inside. To do that, we're going to use another black nylon loop. Now, the manufacturer recommends that you drill out some of these rivets. They want you to drill out the 2 o'clock, the 4 o'clock, and the 8 o'clock rivet. Be very careful when you drill out these rivets. I'm using a 3/16 inch drill bit, and I'm going on the center of each rivet to do so. This is where it can get really hairy. If you start overspinning these rivets and build up heat from friction, it's going to melt through the entire process, and you're not going to have a 3/16 inch hole. You're going to have a 1/2 inch hole from the head of that rivet. So be very careful, guys. That hole drilled, I want to use a lot of silicone. It produces a very large hole. Alright, so what you have to do is you have to take your nylon loop and go around, in this case on this side, the black tubing. And you want to push it away from the hole. So you're actually going to have it set up like that. And apply the rivet. These things will pinch you, so be mindful of that on the back side. And there's your rivet. Okay, so let's go ahead and put the rudder bracket onto the stern of the kayak. Apply a little Loctite on the 1/4 by 20 by 5/8 of an inch bolt. And it just hand tightens in there. And insert the other one. You want to make sure this bracket is straight as well. Alright. At this point, you should have 2 stainless steel rudder control cables and your stainless steel rudder bracket already mounted and poking out of the rear of the kayak. You want to take your rudder control cord and put it into the black tubing. And you're just going to thread it all the way through until it pokes out the back of the kayak. And there it is. Now that we have the black rudder control cord coming out of the back of the kayak, we're going to insert that into the bottom hole, bottom square hole of the rudder frame. And that should pop out the back. Now that it's come out the back, all you want to do is tie a simple overhand knot and tighten. This overhand knot is going to be inserted into the groove on the rudder blade and tucked into a recess hole on the opposite side. Now that we have the knot installed into the recess, if you look on the side of the groove, if you look on the side of the blade, you'll see a groove. That's where the rope runs. All the way through. To install the rudder housing onto the rudder bracket, take your white nylon washer, put onto the stud, insert the stud into the bracket, then you're going to use the split ring included in the kit, and that goes onto the very bottom Take your 20-inch bungee cord, loop it through the half moon clip, and tie an overhand knot. Take your rudder control cord and your rubber ball, stick the rudder control cord through the ball, around the bungee, back through the ball, and pull tightly. From here we want to tie what's called a noose knot, which is essentially just 2 overhand knots. 1 and 2. And then you're going to rethread that line through the end of the loops and tighten. From here, just cut the excess off and police the line. At this point, what we're going to do is attach the rudder control cables to the rudder bracket. To do that, we're going to use these half moon teardrop shaped clips. In order to do this, you have to set your pedals to what's considered 0. Not forward, not to the left, and not to the right. You want to actually have them zeroed out. If you notice, I can't pull this cable any further. That's because I put tape on the actual foot pedals. This keeps it static and it keeps it really stable for me to work. At this point, I'm going to install the connector bracket. In order to do that, I'm going to go in the bracket and come back out the bracket and create a loop. Inside this loop, I'm going to install this ferrule. This ferrule is grooved on the outside, and that's to really bite down on the cable. This does allow for some adjustment. So essentially you want to line up the holes and tighten. With the rough distance worked out here, I'm going to go ahead and install that cam pin on the rudder bracket and the rudder linkage. And then I'm going to put another split ring on the bottom side of this cam pin. With the tension set, we want to trim to length. With it trimmed to length, now we want to install the heat shrink. Now we want to apply the end cap. And of course, activate the heat shrink. What do you say, let's test it out? Just like it's supposed to. Want to go left? Want to go right? There we go. And for my next and final trick, I'm going to show you how to install a rudder tie down. You're going to use the same hook that came off of the rudder. All I did was clip the hook off and pull the cord out. I'm going to reuse that hook. From here, I put a piece of 550 cord and 1 overhand knot. Use a piece of heat shrink. I used a stainless steel hog clamp to make a loop on one end. Then I put some heat shrink over the top of that and shrink it down. Make sure your cleat fits into the hole before you shrink it down. All that's left at this point is riveting it into the hole. And of course, dressing up the rivet holes with some silicone. This neat little thing allows you to secure your rudder when you're going down the highway without having to worry about bungee cords and all this other things. Just make sure you take it off before launch, otherwise you're going to have somebody